So Troy, big news, of course, is your next coming up novel, Crucible. What can you tell us about it?
It stars Han, Leia, and Luke. It starts in a bar, and Han shoots first.
Will we see any squibs?
I don't think we will. At least I don't have any yet planned yet. The squibs just kind of pop up as they want, as they happen.
How far along are you with the writing process?
I'm fairly well started. That's a difficult question to ask or answer because the way writing works for me is I start to work and I'm kind of exploring where the book goes, and it seems to go pretty slow at the initial stages. And then at some point after I've been working on it for a while, it clicks and then it just starts to flow and go really fast. And I'm right at that point where it's just clicked and then everything is kind of gelled in my mind, and I know who the characters are and what they want and what they're trying to accomplish. And so now it's kind of at the stage where it just kind of lays itself out in front of me instead of me trying to still explore my way through it.
Do you write in order, sequentially, or?
Yeah, I always write sequentially. Well, I don't want to say always, almost always write sequentially.
Because I know I talked to Paul Kemp. He says he likes to write out of order. He likes to do different scenes, and that seems so weird to me because I never heard anybody doing that.
Well, when I write out of order, what I do, it'll be when I'm jumping around in a story when I've got like 2 or 3 storylines going, and I'm trying to juggle them and keep them going all at the same time. And sometimes I'll write one whole storyline first, and then go back and write the second storyline, and then divide them up and insert them into each other later. But that's the only time I really write out of order.
Now, with this being your 12th Star Wars novel, are you going to try and do anything different with this one to make it stand out from the others?
Not specifically to make it stand out or to be different than the others. When I write a book, any book, what I do is dictated by the story itself, by what the story needs. And so I don't think in terms of, this is my 12th book, I've got to make it different than the others. I just think in terms of, this is a book about Han and Leia and Luke going off on a grand adventure, and what do I need to do to make that adventure exciting and fun and fast-paced and engaging.
Have you ever thought about doing any comics?
I've kind of toyed with the idea, but I haven't really approached it seriously. I don't know how to write comics, really, so it would be...
would it be something you're interested in, though?
I might be interested in writing comics someday, yeah. It would take a patient publisher to show me the ropes of how to write comics, because, as I'm sure most people are aware, you can't just go from one medium to the other and, just change it. There's little tricks of the trade in each one that you have to learn, and I don't know the tricks of the trade in comics.
All right. This one's kind of a sneaky question.
Okay.
All right. You, Aaron Allison, and Jeff Grubb, you're always wearing tropical shirts. Is it a secret club?
It might be. It may go back to our days at TSR. Aaron actually never worked at TSR, but he worked for TSR back in the old days. And at that time, I have a hard time remembering how the tradition got started, but the game designers at TSR started to wear tropical shirts. I think Zeb Cook was the first one to wear them. Then Jeff started to pick up on it, and I picked up on it, and then Aaron was picking up on it. And since then, it's become kind of a tradition, my con uniform. Matter of fact, that's the only... I have several tropical shirts that I only wear at conventions, wear them no other time for any other purpose, but at cons.
Now, big announcement last week was your new Forgotten Realms novel, The Sentinel. What can you tell us about that one?
Oh, that's going to be a cool concept. WotC asked me to come out last November to talk about doing a Forgotten Realms novel, and me being no fool said, sure, I'll free airplane ride to Seattle to see some of my buddies and gab and talk with WotC, a company I haven't worked with for like 10 years. I'll at least go out and talk. And I went out and talked, and we had 3 days of meetings. And by the end of the 3 days, we had plotted not only my novel, but the other 5 novels in the series. And I was so excited about it, I couldn't wait to, just to get going on it. So that being said, it's obviously a Forgotten Realms novel. It's part of the Sundering series. Bob Salvatore will start it off with the companions. Ed Greenwood will finish it with
the Herald.
The Herald, right? And I'm going to be next to last with the Sentinel. And it's going to be the Sundering itself is going to tell the story of a major event in the realms, a major arc that happens to the realms itself. And each story individually will tell the story of a certain set of characters that are involved in the story. So you'll be seeing it through 6 different sets of eyes, because each set of characters is different. Each book will be standalone, so you won't have to, if you want to read book 3, you won't have to have read books 1 and 2. But if you want to get the whole story of what's happening in the world, you would just start reading with book 1 with the companions, and then go through all the way to the end. It's going to be fun. My characters involve an embittered paladin who's been worshiping the dead god Helm for his entire life, and of course his god is dead, so he hasn't had much luck with it. He ends up being thrown in with a princess who is a very noble princess, but she has a somewhat self-important view. She's a little bit delusional about her own importance in the world, and they end up being thrown together in an adventure with one of my old Forgotten Realm characters, Malik, who's Siric's Prince of Lies.
I haven't read that one.
Seraph, yeah, it's fun. He's a fun little character. He's a Seraph of Lies, and he ends up being thrown into an adventure with my embittered paladin and my delusional princess. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a story of forbidden love. Many kinds of different forbidden love that end up driving the plot. So,
when will that one be out?
That one is April 2014.
It's going to be a while out.
Yeah. The whole series. WotC, I don't know how much your readers are aware, but WotC is retooling D&D, and as part of that, they're going to retool the Forgotten Realms, and they're really taking their time to do it right. They're getting a lot of audience feedback. They're allowing the audience's feedback to dictate actually most of the elements of the game design, and this same thing with the Forgotten Realms. They're going to allow the audience's choices to dictate the direction of the realms in the future. So it's an exciting project. It was just one of those things where it ended up being so excited that I couldn't say no.
Going back to Star Wars, I had a question from one of our admins. He wanted to know, considering all your Star Wars books, which character's development would you be most proud of?
Oh, boy. That's a good question. I have to think back about all the characters. I'm really happy with what we've done with Jaina over the course of the years. I mean, she started as a teenage girl when I started writing it, and she went through some very rocky times as a teenage girl, and then of course when she had to kill her brother, Jacen, in Invincible, that pretty much tore her apart. But I think it also was the Crucible that she had to go through to become a super competent, very fearsome Jedi that she is now. And I'm really happy with the kind of leader that she's growing into as a master in the Jedi Order. So that's one I would be very proud of. I'm proud of a lot of the characters that I've introduced. Saba, Tarfang.
Saba's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love the parables.
Yeah. But they haven't had the kind of long arc that Jaina has. I mean, Jaina's arc has been going on for almost
already back to zone?
40 books. Yeah. I'm thinking of just her arc as when she became a young woman and in the new Jedi Order, young warrior, and then became to where she is now, where she's the leader of the order. That arc's been over about 40 books, and I'm really pleased with where she is now, even though she went through some really rocky times.
Where do you think she'll go in the future?
Well, I have a pretty good idea, but I'm not at liberty to say. But it'll be exciting. I think there are great things in the wind for Jaina.
What's your opinion of the new generation of Jedi? I know a lot of new Jedi were introduced in the Fate of the Jedi series. Do you see that as like a beacon for like new readers to attach to?
I hope so. I think that the new Jedi they've gone through an era that I kind of think of as a Jacen Solo era, where, from the new Jedi Order through Legacy of the Force through Fate of the Jedi, that has been one of soul searching for the whole Jedi Order, not quite sure who they should be serving, what their purpose is. And one of the things I really wanted to accomplish in Apocalypse was to give the Jedi Order final crystallization where they know who they are and why they're there. And I think that if the future of the EU goes where I think it's going to go, and I'm somewhat guessing at this point, I think the Jedi are going to be in a great place to have a lot of super interesting stories and to be real heroes of the universe without having a lot of the gray storylines that have led to some of their downfalls. I think that the Jedi know who they are, and that the challenges that are going to face them are going to be more challenges of.
Yeah, a lot of the gray areas they get into is when they start getting into politics, it seems.
Right, yeah, exactly. and I think they're going to move away from that. That was one of the goals I set for Apocalypse, was to move us into a era of more the monk warrior type Jedi.
This one's kind of an oddball question. Will we ever hear any more about the Lorellian Corp?
Oh boy, that's actually a good question. I think it's quite likely we will, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's shaken out yet. But obviously Hafez and Tinelka and Alana and all of that is going to be a big part of the future of the Jedi Order, or since the Jedi are actually living in the Hopping Consortium now. So my guess is that we will be hearing a lot more.
So we'll be hearing a lot more of the Hafez.
Yeah, I think we'll be hearing. I think that they will continue to be a part of the storylines, but I don't know that the storylines are going to be about the Hafez Consortium, but the Hafez Consortium will always be in the background there.
Which villains have you enjoyed writing the most? I mean, you've got the Yuuzhan Vong, you've got the Killiks, you've got Darth Caedus, you've got Abeloth.
Yeah. I love all my villains equally. It's hard to pick one because the villain you're writing at the time is the one that you're most engaged with.
Was there one that was harder than the others?
Abeloth was a fairly hard villain to write just because of her power level and because of who she was and not really wanting to reveal that too early in the series. So we had to meet that out. And then, of course, you're obviously writing with two other authors, so there's always a little bit of gray area in terms of what we decide we're going to meet out at a particular time. So she was a little bit harder to write than I think a lot of them. One of the villains I enjoyed writing most was Alima Rar, just because she really wasn't a villain, she was more of a victim. But she was fun to write. Jacen was a challenge to write. I did like writing Jacen a lot because it was difficult for me at times to remember that he was the villain, because he was doing all these terrible things, but in Jacen's mind he had a clear view of why he was doing it, and he was doing it to save the galaxy. And from a certain point of view, he did save the galaxy. So it's hard to. I like that he is a very villain that's very difficult to really pin down and make sure, say absolutely crystal clearly, yeah, he was wrong, because from a certain point of view, he wasn't wrong.
Now, with Abeloth, did you kind of channel any of sort of the ideas you laid out with, like, the Lady of Pain? Because there's some similarities there.
I didn't consciously channel those ideas, but now that you bring it up, I think that they're both very mythic characters. Both entirely based in myth. And I think there's a lot of similarity there. And, their function, the idea of pain and strife being necessary part of the galaxy and being necessary for the rebirth of the next generation is a good parallel to bring out.
Where did the idea for Tarfang and Jae Juun come from?
I'm honestly not sure that I can remember, but I was writing, I think it was one of those spontaneous things while I was writing it, and I needed a couple of characters to fulfill a role, and as I recall, I needed somebody to take Han and Leia somewhere, or to tell them how to get somewhere. I can't even remember what the function was, but I needed some characters to fulfill a function, and I just said, all right, what would be cool here? And I decided that I would make a comical version of Han and Chewbacca. And so that was kind of the origination. Except I wanted, obviously, Jae Juun was a little bit Han's opposite, because he was so into orders and the proper way of doing things. And I thought, it would be fun just to take Han and Chewbacca, put him down into the miniature to half scale, and then flip them around so that they were.
Now, you first wrote about the squibs in the West End Games Alien Races Guide. Also, the squibs are kind of closely tied with the Ugors, the trash worshipping aliens. Is there any reason we haven't seen more of them?
Of the Ugors? Yeah. I think probably because the Ugors just aren't going to be as fun a character. I mean, it's pretty hard to write a convincing. I mean, those characters the Ugors especially, were tongue-in-cheek characters, and it's really hard to write an interesting story about. Boy, I can't remember how many arms they had.
They could change how many they wanted.
So about these pseudopods that worship trash, I think that wouldn't be a very compelling character.
Now, what made you choose to use the squibs and not something like the Jawas, which are a little bit more fan recognizable?
Right. I'm trying to remember when we used the squibs for the first time. All right, that was on
Tatooine Books.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I used the squibs. I'm trying to remember why I chose the squibs instead of the Jawas. I think the Jawas, for one thing, I don't think could speak common or basic. I'm getting my worlds mixed up here. I don't think they could speak basic. And the characters needed to be able to communicate. But the Jawas didn't have quite enough personality in my mind for what I needed. I wanted to have some characters that could be a real pain in the ass. And the squibs pretty much fulfilled that goal.
When telling a story, what do you do to keep it fun?
I try to make it fun to write. I have I look at the structure of a story, and I think about the structure in a story a lot. And for me, a lot of the work that I do is in terms of setting up a structure so that it's an engaging structure that raises a question in the character's mind, or in the reader's mind, and pulls them through the story through suspense. And that's really the primary thing I think about when I'm sitting down to outline a story or to outline a chapter. And once I achieve that, I kind of just let it go and see where it goes. And when it works best is the characters come alive by themselves once I have the structure.
I don't want to keep you too long. Let me see. hours.
No, I'm good on time, a few hours. Yeah.
What author would you like to work with in a future project?
Any author?
Yeah, any author.
Oh, boy.
Or a Star Wars author.
Yeah. Well, William Goldman's my favorite author, but I don't think that's going to happen. It just would depend on the project. There's a lot of great authors that I really enjoy. And it would be, if we were working on a series of books that we were alternating, I think it would depend on the series. Some authors would be great for a series and some wouldn't. Well, they're still great authors, but, they might not be the appropriate person for that thing.
In Star Wars, where do you think, from a storytelling aspect, it needs to go to do more villains, do a villain that we haven't seen already, something different? Where would we go with that?
Crucible. Crucible is going to have villains that I don't believe we've seen before. And I think that's one of the things that's going to be coming in the post-apocalypse Star Wars EU, is that there will be a lot greater variety of villains to pick from. I mean, they'll certainly... My guess is, and this is really just a guess, my guess is that there will still be Sith, but there won't be all Sith. There won't be... Every story won't be about the Sith. There'll be a lot of different kinds of stories. And, of course, that means different kinds of villains. And certainly Crucible is going to have different villains.
When writing, what part comes the easiest to you?
Actually, they're rewriting. Once I've got the first draft done, it becomes very clear to me what I need to do to polish it and to fix it and to knock off the rough edges. So that's the easiest part. I can, if all I ever had to do was write the second draft, so I'd be a happy man.
What would be the hardest part?
The hardest part is getting the story going. When I finish an outline, I always have a pretty clear idea in my mind of where the story is going to go and what it's about. And then I start to write. And as I write it, the story starts to take on a life of its own, and the characters want to go in their own directions. And discovering the interplay between that and the outline, allowing them to have the freedom to go and do what they want while staying within the confines of the outline. That can be pretty difficult, and it's really a process of discovery. And that's always, almost without exception, the most difficult part of a book for me is say the first 100 pages, and that's a very rough figure. Sometimes it's the first 200 pages, or sometimes it's only the first 50 pages. But they'll go slow, and that's really, I'm really getting to know who the characters are in this particular book. Because even though I write the same characters over and over, they're coming from a slightly different place in each book. So,
what's the best thing you've seen at Celebration 6 so far?
Man, I just got here.
Haven't got a chance to look around yet?
Yeah, I haven't really got just being here. Yeah.
All right, and last question. Stephen King once remarked that he likes to use certain words just to keep them alive. Like sometimes he'll use some weird words. Is there any words you like to use that keep them alive?
Efflux.
Efflux.
Yeah. I know a lot of fans are looking for a lot of readers are always looking for how many times I use efflux. And I generally try to use it at least once a book.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that sounds good.
All right, thank you then.